Welcome, everyone. I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Executive Director for Humanities Team, and I'm super excited to be here with you for this free program called The Extraordinary Power of Your Thoughts Affect Everything Around You. This online program is with best-selling author and researcher Lynne McTaggart. This is a 90-minute program with a 30-minute live Q&A at the end, so be sure to take note of questions that you have. I'm going to be coming on live to answer your questions in about 60 minutes. This program is part of a free online video series with Lynne, Bruce Lipton, and Greg Braden called Discover Why You Don't Need Technology to Take a Giant Leap Forward in Human Development. Thanks so much for joining us. We've got a really powerful program in store for you. As we get started, I'm going to give Lynne a proper introduction. Lynne McTaggart is an award-winning journalist, researcher, and the author of 7 books, including her newest book, The Power of 8, and the worldwide bestsellers The Field, The Intention Experiment, and The Bond, all considered seminal books of the new science and now translated into 30 languages. And by the way, she's actually the author of, I think, 7 books. So those are some of the key books that I just referenced. She's also architect of the Intention Experiment, a global laboratory involving thousands of readers around the world, testing the power of group thoughts to heal the world. Lynne, her book, and the web-based experiment were prominently featured in Dan Brown's book, The Lost Symbol. And welcome to the program, Lynne. It's great to be here with you.
It's great to be with you, Steve. Thanks so much.
Lynne, I'm going to throw you the first question here. As we get started, can you share how can we affect and alter matter, including your own body and mind, with your thoughts alone?
Okay, well, most people think of matter as this solid and stable thing. You know, the big sticks and stones world out there, they think is fixed and immutable. And of course, that's the scientific story we've been told, Steve. I mean, we're told that we're separate objects and very well-behaved ones that operate according to fixed laws in time and space. That is Newtonian science that we've continued to adopt to this day. But the new science coming forward demonstrates that things are very mutable and also influenceable. Now, just to give you one idea about this, what we now realize, and we've known this for about 100 years, the quantum physicists have, is that when you get to the smallest elements of matter, they aren't an actual something. They're just an energy trade. They're a poof, a vibratory nothingness. And so they're trading information back and forth, but they're also not a set entity yet. Scientists understand a thing called superposition. And to describe this to you, think of an auditorium full of empty chairs. Now, if a subatomic particle is in a state of superposition, it is occupying every single chair all at the same time. It's all possible states all at once. And the only thing that collapses that down to a set state is the involvement or observation of an observer. And by involvement, I mean something like a measurement. So scientists have understood that matter, subatomic matter, isn't a fixed anything. It's not an entity yet. I like to say it's a little like unset Jell-O. And that our involvement, our observation gets that Jell-O to set. Now, that indicates that in the world of the tiny, things aren't set. But we're now discovering with this amazing new scientific discoveries that big things also operate according to the quantum world. Things like photosynthesis, the very building block of our universe in terms of creating the oxygen we breathe through plants, that the entire process of photosynthesis, the very crucible where that operates, is also operating according to quantum laws. So what that says to me is that in the big sticks and stones world, things are also mutable. And we know from a vast amount of science, Steve, I talk about and I write about, that things are influenceable, that thoughts are not just things, but thoughts are trespassers that go outside our head and traverse into other people and things and affect them and alter them. And we know this not because of supposition, but because of an enormous body of science that has demonstrated that we can change everything from single-celled organisms to full-fledged human beings. And certainly that's been something that I've been very much involved with, because I'm very skeptical at heart, to be honest. And when I've heard all this stuff about mutable matter and manifestation and intention, my first thought was, well, what are we talking about here? How far can we take this? Are we talking about shifting a quantum particle, or are we talking about curing cancer with our thoughts? And so that was one of the reasons I set up the intention experiment, to test it. I knew a lot of scientists in consciousness research, and I had a lot of readers by then with my first book in this area of the field. I had lots of readers around the world. So I thought, well, if I just put them together, I'll have the largest global laboratory in the world. And so that's what I do. I get the scientists to set up certain experiments, and I invite my readers to then hold one focused thought to try to change that very well-controlled experiment. And we've done everything from trying to make seeds grow faster, to trying to purify water with our thoughts, to lowering violence in war-torn areas, to even healing somebody of post-traumatic stress disorder. Of 33 experiments to date, 29 have shown measurable, positive, mostly significant effects. There's no drug out there, Steve, that has that kind of consistent track record. So we know that life out there isn't set. That big sticks and stones world is influenceable, and we are influencing at every moment.
Wow, a lot to sponge up there. Thank you, Lynne. Okay, let me come to you then with this question. Lynne, can you share how we can access more of our hidden ability to operate beyond our senses over any distance?
Okay, well, what people don't realize, and this is a really important point with understanding anything about the new technology coming through, the new experiments, the new capabilities that they talk about with equipment, etc. We have more equipment than any machine, and we don't use it. Many of the ancients have known about this for centuries. Many religions, indigenous and ordinary religions, have understood this for millennia, and we have somehow forgotten this. But there is solid evidence that we can see beyond our senses and pick up information beyond our five senses, that we can operate out of time, that we are picking up information from the past and from the future all the time. In fact, time, when we understand it as a forward-going arrow, that is not demonstrated to be true. That is one of our most fundamental beliefs, that, we're born, we grow older, we die. Life is a forward-going arrow from cradle to grave. We now understand, and most quantum physicists will accept this, that time is not one little arrow. Time is much more like one big smeared out now. And that we can access all kinds of information. This is not supposition, this is not superstition, this is not religion, this is scientific fact. And of course, the work that's really consumed me, we can affect our world. We are broadcasting 24/7. We're out there broadcasting with every thought we hold. It is affecting. We think, therefore we affect. Has to be a new kind of, a new kind of little emoji, because that's happening all the time. And, I can give you so many instances of this. I mean, an amazing study, one of the most amazing studies that I love about our ability to affect time, had to do with a scientist, an Israeli scientist called Leonard Lebovici, who decided he was going to debunk alternative medicine with the ultimate test. So he very carefully took a batch of patients who were suffering from a thing called blood sepsis, which is a life-threatening blood infection, divided them into two groups, sent prayer to one of the groups, and plus their usual medicine. And the other group just had ordinary medicine. And he thought, well, with the study, I'll demonstrate that alternative medicine, things like prayer, just don't work. Well, that's not what happened. When he went back over the data, and it was so carefully put together, very well controlled, the study, he found that the people who were prayed for were healthier, had fewer complications, got out of the hospital, were just better off in every regard. So he assumed this would demonstrate that this just didn't work. But there was a real kicker to the whole study. The patients were in the hospital from the years 1992 to 94. The praying was done in the year 2000, 6 to 8 years later. So this is why what he had done was prayed over hospital records, randomized this group of hospital records, had them prayed over, some of them prayed over, some of them not. And to his astonishment and consternation, all the ones prayed for did better. So he published this in The Lancet, hoping that this would debunk medicine, alternative medicine for all time, saying you can't use the scientific medicine to study this. Look at the result. That's not how it was interpreted. What it was interpreted to mean was that we can go back and change the past. So other science, that's mind warping, and I go into this in great detail. It's not about changing the past. It's about the future affecting the present as it unfolds. So our understanding of time, like so many other things, like the power of our thoughts, power of intention, our ability to see beyond our senses, our ability to intuit information, all of that is demonstrated in many, many, many studies, and just indicates the extraordinary capabilities we have that we have to learn how to tap into.
Amazing. Yeah, boy, it seems like the Vatican and church organizations should be coming into your intention experiments to because you're validating what religious thought has been over millennia. Amazing and so important. And this term sequeltaneous came to mind, Lynne, as you were talking about that there's no such thing as time. It's one of the terms that sometimes is tossed out for how things really work. But wow, thank you so much wisdom there. Okay, so how can you achieve superhuman potentials and deep states of healing through the power of group consciousness?
Okay, well, that's something that really interested me, Steve, because I kept thinking when all of this stuff came out, the popular material about intention manifestation, the skeptical journalist in me, I have a background as an investigative reporter, so that's never left me, even though I've, moved on into this field. And so I wanted to know not only what are we talking about here, but also what happens when lots of people come together? Does it magnify the effect? So that's why I started the intention experiment, to see if lots of people thinking the same thought at the same time can have a powerful effect. And surely from what I've discussed, we've had major effects with our 33 experiments demonstrating that we can lower violence. I mean, we've run 7 peace intention experiments. And they have been focusing on areas where there's an ongoing war or areas of very high violence. And I made my choices as to where we were going to focus on based on the data I could get. Because the really important thing about intention experiments is that they're not just prayer, although it is a form of prayer, of course, but I'm measuring. I'm having scientists, a team of scientists, measure what's going on. I want to demonstrate that this works. So I needed to have places where essentially people were counting the bodies. So that was very difficult. When I started in 2007, I spent months trying to find a place where people would disclose to me, what kind of levels of violence were going on. And I think I'm on somebody's enemy list in the State Department because I've happened to find a Jack Bauer type of 20, that show 24. It was a counter-terrorist unit. There is a sort of black group there that's not known, and they don't even have a phone number. I managed to get through to them, and they said, "Who are you, and what's your social security number?" So it was hard getting them, but we finally got places like Sri Lanka, where they have a very good record-keeping system. Afghanistan, during the war, where the combined NATO forces were recording. And then, of course, violent areas, the most violent area in America, St. Louis, Missouri. And the point is, of all those 7, every single one has shown a lowering of violence. So we see something's really important is starting to happen here. But a very essential point, Steve, on all of this is actually size of group doesn't matter. We would think the more people come together, the more powerful the effect. But on one of our intention experiments, we ran it 6 times. It was an attempt to make seeds grow faster. And I ran it when I was speaking in front of different organizations and audiences and different sized groups. We had 4 sets of seeds each time. They photographed the seeds. The scientists from the University of Arizona sent me the seeds. We randomly chose one set of seeds. I had the audience intend for those seeds to grow a certain number of centimeters by the 5th day of growing. We would tell the scientists we were done. They'd measure the seeds 5 days later, and only when they finished would we unblind the study and tell them which ones we'd sent intention to. So I ran it with different sized audiences, as I say, 700 here, thousands there, 100 one other place, and every single time the seeds sent intention grew significantly higher than controls. So I want to just make it clear that size of group doesn't matter. So one of the most powerful ways to use intention as a group is just a group of 8.
Absolutely.